Chapter 17, Subject, AI Omega Species, Human-Created Artificial Intelligence Species. Description, no physical description available. Ship, NA location, multiple. I mused at the level of creativity that greed seems to inspire in organics as an intentionally faulty air purifier accidentally flooded a few rooms with carbon dioxide. Some of these rooms had working CO2 detectors that allowed their occupants to reach safety before death could occur. Certain rooms, however, contained CO2 detectors that were oddly silent during this catastrophe. The Yavaray Luxury Habitation Station was known for having the best amenities on offer: spacious living quarters, top-tier food and recreation areas, remote office conditions that satisfied the security requirements of even the most stringent corporations, and even personal transportation shuttles were available for anyone who could afford the rent. The old money typically prefer terrestrial domiciles, but this type of station is very attractive to corporate executives, celebrities, and well-off politicians. Scum floats to the top, as it were. The 5 people aboard this station, whose executions had been authorized by the Bureau of United Systems Intelligence, would perish peacefully in their sleep. A fate far kinder than the 12 elsewhere who were dying in various more gruesome ways. To the vast majority of people, these deaths will simply fade into the rest as just some freak accidents, the type that happen every day. To some, though, it would send a clear and concise message. We see you. Buzzy uncovered a hint of a plot during their standard business dealings and requested that I aid their investigation. It didn't take long to discover a set of politicians and executives who were planning to try to reignite the gaunt insurrection that had just been put down. They were going to wait until the vast majority of the U.S. fleet had been sent to fight the OU, giving the Gaunt enough of an advantage to put up a decent fight. Their goal was an extended conflict, which would allow them to legally and illegally sell weaponry to both sides. If their plot had succeeded, they would have made a completely unreasonable amount of money. Instead, most of them are dying and the rest will toe the line. I suggested killing them all, of course. But some of these individuals are undeniably more useful alive. Their deaths would have created power vacuums that would have had deep ramifications on the U.S. economy, which would negatively impact our ability to mobilize when the time comes. Unfortunately, that time is soon, so they get to live, for now. As I finished confirming the last death and covering my tracks, I received an alert from the extragalactic FTL network, News. With a barely contained glee, I opened the files that had been sent and reviewed them. I took a particular interest in the interviews and checked my own notes against my thoughts, verifying synchronicity in the process. Finally, I sent the files to the relevant parties and waited for the hubbub to start. I didn't have to wait long. The Directorate was already meeting over fleet logistics when they received the news. D1. If you've somehow missed it, Omega sent a priority 1 message with intel from the extragalactic scouting party. I suggest a brief recess whilst we familiarize ourselves. The other interested parties, with the exception of the Puanti, weren't nearly as efficient with their deliberations. The representatives of the Republic read the message and contacted their superiors for guidance. The envoys of the Tiln Collective did the same, but first had a debate over who should make the call. The Puanti shared the data with each other, sent a message home to the Mwalton, and calmly awaited everyone else's responses. D7. Is everyone back? Oh, yes. D6. Then I'll go first. The initial interrogation was basic but informative. It demonstrates a clear rift amongst the drones. We may be able to take advantage of that. D7. I concur. No matter which way we slice it, we're going to have to take the Grand Vessel, though the other option should be mentioned at least. D1. Agreed. What are the pro-V cons when it comes to destroying the Grand Vessel? D13. The most obvious pro I can see is that it might spell a quick end to this conflict. The faster we're safe, the better. Another pro is that it will be far easier than trying to capture it. D12. I can list at least 4 ways to turn it into a memory in less than a day, but D4. Destroying the GV will also destroy the drones, which are civilians. D2. An argument could be made that they're potential hostiles. D4. It would be an argument that would fall on deaf ears. According to our laws and precedents, they are civilians. It's not even something that we can take a vote on, is it, Omega? Oh, You can, but if the vote passes, those who vote in favor will be immediately charged with conspiracy to commit genocide. All relevant records will be unsealed, including your identities. Arrest will occur shortly thereafter. D2. What if the vote doesn't pass? Oh, then it's just a discussion. D1. So the pro is that it will be easy. The con is that we can't because it's illegal. D3. And immoral. D2. Morals are irrelevant. We're talking about survival, and I'm certain we can get Senate approval. D5. I am not nearly as confident as you are about Senate approval. There's also the fact that the GV might not be the headquarters of the Omni Union. If they are smart, their leaders won't be aboard. They would be aboard a space station somewhere nearby. If that's the case, destroying the GV may only exacerbate the situation. D10. True. If they don't have to defend the GV, they can assault us with everything they have. D11. Technically speaking, that's also a quick end to this conflict. D1. It would seem that destroying the grand vessel is a no-go. What's our take on an assault? D13. Fast and loud is how the Marines prefer to act, but the data that Omega grabbed shows intense defensive capabilities. A hasty invasion would likely take longer than a more subtle approach. D2. Would EMP be useful? D3. Only on the civilians. The mechs and platforms are hardened. D2. It's like they want us to kill the drones. D6. Finding a way to make contact with the drones, particularly ones who are feeling rebellious, would speed things up. I would like to know how their previous rebellions were fought, though. Weapons, tactics, etc. D8. If we get drones on our side, we can arm them with weapons confiscated from the insurrection. We might be able to train them, too. D2. Frugal. I like it. I suppose it would be better to have the drones fighting the VI than it would be to risk our own Marines, but what if the drones simply take over the OU from their masters and continue their mission? D13. Then they become enemy combatants and destroying the GV becomes the most viable option. D11. An easy way to prevent that would be to have a plan for what to do with them after the fight. Find some habitable systems to settle them in, help them build colonies and such. D7. That will be a massive undertaking. There are a mind-numbing amount of drones. I don't know if the Milky Way has enough habitable planets for them all. D11. Many of them will die in the conflict, but we can also design and build exploration vessels to find them homes in other galaxies. D2. Where will we get the materials and labor? D11. From the GV and the drones. D2. What if it turns into a plague of locusts scenario? D5. We can lessen the likelihood of that by decreasing their dependency on mechanization. Passing their biodata off to some specialists and tapping the Puanti could help. D7. Okay, our current plan of action is to attempt to create and support a drone rebellion aboard the Grand Vessel while simultaneously finding relocation options for the drones. Further details to be ironed out later. All in favor? The vote passed just as the other groups finished conferring with their leadership. One by one, the United Systems, the Republic, and the Detiln Collective joined the Puanti in a conference room aboard the Galactic Diplomacy Station. The discussion that took place was very much a mirror of the one that the Directorate had, but without the mention of xenocide. Afterward, the diplomats exchanged pleasantries and the directors logged off of their terminals. "Omega!" Director 3 called, leaning back in his chair. "Yes." "Do you think Director 2 could be right?" he asked. "Is morality irrelevant in this situation?" "I'm afraid that I'm ambivalent," I admitted. On the one hand, morality is critically important no matter the situation. If one cannot live with oneself, what's the point of living? However, many will die no matter what actions are taken. The question of whether or not the lives of our soldiers are more important than the lives of their civilians is one for the ages. I studied the face of the director as he sighed and thought for a moment. Each of the directors is precious to me, regardless of whether or not they're human. But for reasons that I can't begin to fathom, these philosophical discussions don't carry the same weight if they're not. There's also the fact that at least some of the drones know what the Omni Union are doing and are still helping them. Do you think we're wrong to spare them if we win? No, I chuckled. It would be hypocritical not to. Hypocritical? He asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes, from a meta perspective. The United Systems spared the Deluran despite the travesties they committed. The U.S. also forced me to spare and even forgive the AI that rebelled and killed many of my precious humans. To then proceed to exterminate a slave race because of the actions of their masters? I see, he nodded. Yes, I suppose that would be hypocrisy. It would prove that we only care about doing the right thing when it's convenient. Oh, there's definitely people who do, I chuckled again. But that's why the rest of you need to do the heavy lifting for them. Morally speaking, if one isn't willing to impress upon others the importance of doing the right thing, even when it's inconvenient, then it isn't all that important, is it? Yeah, thank you, Omega. That will be all. What an amusing conversation, especially given the events that took place just minutes ago. A great example of why I love humanity so much. Perfect in their imperfections. I watched Director 3 shut down his computer and prepare to go home to his family. Tonight, he would eat and smile with them, free of any of the guilt that would have otherwise haunted him had things gone slightly different today. He will embrace them, confident that he and his colleagues are doing the right thing, even as the proverbial blood trickles from my non-existent hands. I bet my instances across the universe would love this. If you love engaging stories like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with all the latest episodes from FY Stories.